so bored,
Edath complained, laying down in her bed with her legs against the cold wall and her hands touching the ground. She was looking to the cell's door upside down. She wasn't sure how many days or weeks passed since Ace and Lael paid her a visit. She suddenly heard some footsteps that seemed to be closer.
Hey, I'm bored. Do you want to play with me?
The door was unlocked and opened. A female prison guard appeared with a serious expression. Edath didn't know her. She looked to be around her 30s and too pretty to be a prison guard. She had soup and an apple in her hands. The woman looked outside and then to Edath.
Huh? What did I do to deserve such a beauty to come play with me?
I'm here to bring a message, so before you think of attacking me, hear me out first. It's from Lael.
Edath tilted her head. The guard entered the cell and closed the door. She put her food in her bed.
He told me that if you didn't trust me and don't believe that I'm telling the truth, that he says he is really sorry for what happened to Simon and Lael.
What is it? And who are you?
My name is Roberta Lopez, and I'm from Lael's team. When I say team, I mean the rebellion team. There's another thing Lael wants to tell you. He says, be ready and use your natural talents to make your way out. You'll understand when it's time to use them.
Edath leaned back in the mattress and smiled. The guard nodded and left, locking the door.
That son of a bitch. I don't know what he's planning, but I know I thought him fucking well.
Carver, we've got a new case.
Julian rushed inside their office, bringing some copies of the case. He walked fast towards Carver's desk and handed it over. Carver was surrounded by papers and folders on his desk, trying to organize the information they had for 2 years that he didn't have time to deal with it.
Oh, great. We already have so much work up our asses and we still get more. God, how I hate Christmas at the end of every year. Well, this doesn't seem to work for us, but listen. You deal with this because Tadeas told me they should have been done for some time now. I trust you.
Adam Carver nodded and made a face that didn't allow any questions. Julian nodded too and walked away, now in the direction of a busy Lael working on his computer with a complaining Ace, who was questioning why they had to run the slowest operative system on their computers.
We've got work to do.
How do you want to do this?
I'm thinking you deal with most of it. I'll work on the part that requires less work. What do you think? Good. Whenever you're ready.
We were born ready.
It's finally done. I'm gonna go have a smoke.
Carver sighed, stretching his arms above his head. He had spent 3 hours organizing all of those files, and he was already tired of being sat down. Adam Carver stood up and walked towards outside, greeting some of his colleagues while meeting them. When he was about to exit the building, he almost bumped into one of the police officers that were walking inside the building. The man Carver almost bumped into looked at him and grabbed him by the arm, making Carver lose his balance for a moment.
Excuse me, sir. Are you Detective Adam Carver?
Yes, I am. What happened?
I'm sorry, Detective, but we're placing you under arrest for the pseudocide of 100 prisoners, the misprision of coercive persuasive activities, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice.
What? Where's the evidence for that?
You know how this works, Detective. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him with you while being questioned. Now move it.
The officer began to explain Adam's rights as he was being taken away to the car. As soon as they exited the building, the media was already there. Adam was getting dizzy with all the camera flashes and tons of journalists trying to interview him, while the security police was protecting him.
Is it true that you were an accomplice on running illegal experiments on people, and that it was financed by the government?
What can you say about the island you sent all those prisoners?
How could you protect such a big secret for so long without getting caught?
They finally put Carver in the car. He waited in there for a little while, still surrounded by journalists. He hid his face in his hands, trying to calm down. A few minutes passed until Tadeas, their director, also entered the car. The cops began to drive away from there. Adam looked at Tadeas, confused with all of that. This one had a serious expression and seemed to be pissed off.
How?
A rat, probably.
The rain started to fall. The car stopped at a red sign. In another car that stopped at the same red sign, Tadeas spotted Lael and Ace. Both were looking back at him, smirking. Tadeas opened his mouth.
Ace, that brat deceived us all.
The sign turned green, and Lael's car drove away from them. He looked at Kraber, who was confused. Tadeas didn't reply.
I'm pretty sure Ace woke Lael's memories.
What? You think so? But he was acting normal all the time, even recently. Plus, why would you awake him? But if he is, we're doomed.
They both waited for their fate in silence. Edath was sharpening and polishing a small knife she created by using a gutter she managed to get. With a lighter, she used fire to mold it as well. She smirked, satisfied with the ending result. She hid it behind her back, under her clothes, in case it was the day she had to run away. She had been preparing herself since the notice from the guard, around 2 weeks ago. She didn't receive any signal yet, so she had to stay quiet. She walked around her cell without much to do. She bet it was almost time for a guard to bring her food and abuse her. She was tired of playing crazy and fragile, and needed to be out of there before getting really insane. As usual, she began to hear some footsteps, but this time there were more, and seemed rushed. She peeked from the only window on the door, and saw 2 guards rushing to another cell in another corridor. The younger one got back, since a third guard met him halfway. She stood quiet, trying to listen to what they were saying to each other.
An inmate is decompensated and he already killed another. Where are George and Mike when they're needed?
We can handle this. Just try to stop his movements, and then I'll inject him with a tranquilizer.
Edath knew those guards, and knew they were the only ones around at that time on that block. She bit her lip. She was sure she could deal with that alone. She knew that the inmate they were talking about had strong hallucinations when they forgot to give him his medication. When that happens, it would be difficult to put him down. She decided to take a chance, even if she ended up caught.
I've been tortured for so long. Even if they kill me, I just wouldn't mind anymore.
And fetched her hidden newly created blades. With a cell's key she copied in her free time out of a gutter she managed to get after being able to steal the guard's key, she was able to unlock the cell's door.
Oh, they are so stupid. Did they actually imprison me in an old room that still has a door lock inside?
Edath had one of her knives in her hand in case one of them came back. She walked fast down the corridor and halted before the corner. She waited to hear some movement, but they were still probably around the other inmate. She sighed and was going to walk towards one of the exits when she realized she had to have one of the cards the guards had had. She bit her lip.
Well, of course it wouldn't be that simple.
She looked at an inmate that was peeking from a cell with a smirk. The woman was around her 30s, and the only thing Edath knew was that she was a serial killer serving a life sentence. She walked towards her door and spoke through the small compartment she was speaking through.
Hey! Oi! I'll set you free if you help me out escaping this prison.
She looked at her intensely, waiting for her reply. The bald woman with really dark eyes and scars all over her head and face tilted her head and smiled. In that corridor, besides Edath, only that woman was held in there, since another inmate was displaced to another prison facility. Those were usually the corridors with the most dangerous inmates, which was why they avoided having many cells there. After all, the regime they were in was so intense that they wouldn't even go outside, so they had more space in the cells for them to move freely in an imprisoned place.
Fine. It's not like I didn't think about staying here forever.
The woman shrugged and smirked, looking at Edath while she was lockpicking the door.
I don't know if you've heard about me, but you can call me Hex. What should I call you, honey?
Death is fine enough, but don't think this is supposed to be a sign for you to kill me. If you try to do that, you're the one that ends up dead. Do you hear me?
Hex laughed, and Edath noticed some teeth missing and some bad odor coming from inside her cell. She bet she wasn't someone she'd want to deal with after parting ways.
I love a woman who threatens me like that. Fine, Death. I won't try to kill you.
As Hex finished talking, Edath managed to open the cell's door. She could see that Hex was telling the truth, even if only for that moment. Edath didn't know much of her story, but knew she was a compulsive liar and a smooth talker as well.
Do you have your own weapons?
Edath asked, leaning towards the opposite wall, distancing from Hex and getting closer to the corner where they should go next. Hex flipped a gun and loaded it. Edath narrowed her eyes, and Hex put on a smug expression.
Dear Death, you still have a long way to go. You see, I was already prepared for today.
Hex moved silently to the wall opposed to where Edath was, giving Edath the chance to peek inside Hex's cell. Inside Hex's cell was a bloodbath. She couldn't really recognize the corpses, but she knew they were from the last 2 guards. The bodies were carefully and professionally dismembered and turned into a human Christmas tree. Hex used both small intestines from the guards to serve as a tree decoration, and other organs as Christmas presents. Everything around was strangely clean. Even Hex's clothing was not stained. Edath looked away and sighed. She couldn't imagine how Hex had done that so professionally.
I see you don't get pretty shocked or sick with it. I respect you for that.
Huh, I see you had time to play around.
I'm a ritualistic myself. If you knew my criminal convictions, you'd know my signature. And after all, it's almost Christmas, isn't it?
Oh, right. I don't celebrate that, so I guess I can't appreciate your masterpiece. Sorry. Anyway, this means we have more trouble ahead because they'll be looking for those guards.
Maybe. Although, it is cooler this way, isn't it?
Hex winked, moving slowly towards the direction where the guards went to. Edath clicked her tongue, pissed off, because Hex was already taking the leads. She followed Hex 7 feet away, analyzing how she worked. As soon as this one crossed the corner, she shot the guards. Edath peeked only to see all of them dead, except for the prisoner who was sitting on the guard, looking at them.
Pretty good.
Hex smirked, grabbing the guard's guns and ammo. She threw one of them to Edath, who caught it and unlocked it. She pointed her chin to the guy.
What do we do with him?
I was going to kill him, but he's not so out of his mind like he pretends. Isn't that right, T?
The guy stopped, gazing at them with a distant expression, and stood up. He smirked and cleaned the dust off his clothing. He was in his late 20s and was good-looking, even if he had the dead eyes and the physical marks of a drug addict.
If you killed me, I'd hunt you down.
He grabbed one of the guns Hex had and gestured.
I don't think we've met, but now's maybe not the time for introductions. All I can say is we need to work to get the hell out of here or we'll get shot. Follow me, I know how to get out of here faster.
Edath didn't hesitate. She understood he was reliable even if he was a good actor, and probably a liar. She didn't have many choices anyway. She followed him as they began to run.
Whatever happens, I'll have to make sure I tried everything. I won't die in vain. I'll have to survive. Why? I wonder. There's just something that moves inside of me that doesn't allow me to die right now. Maybe I will understand why after seeing him.